This is the Homeschool Show from North Carolinians for Home Education. Our goal is to help you homeschool with confidence and joy. I'm your host, Matthew McDill. Today is September 13, 2021. Welcome to the show. I'd like to welcome into the studio today the co-host of today's show, anyway, maybe forever, John Lewis.
Well, hi, Matthew. Thank you for that. I'm assuming that I won't crash and burn on the very first episode, but we'll see.
Can you tell us what we have planned today?
Yeah. So we're going to start off with the homeschool news, and then we've got a segment called Homeschool Conversations, which is going to be an interview with Dr. Kathy Cook of Celebrate Kids. Her name doesn't look like it would be pronounced that way, but we're also going to have a segment called the Homeschool Reality Moment, and that's where we're going to take a look at real-life homeschool situations and take a look into your homeschool and see what's going on. So, Matthew, what's the homeschool news this week?
Okay, the big homeschool headline this summer is North Carolina homeschools grow almost 19%. So in July 2021, the North Carolina Division of Non-Public Education published the North Carolina Homeschool Statistics for the 2020-2021 school year. The number of state-recognized homeschools grew by about 18.7%. There are now 112,614 state-recognized homeschools in North Carolina. The percentage of growth the year before was 4.6%, with 94,863 state-recognized homeschools. So we've gone from 4.6% growth to 18.7% growth.
That's huge.
It is. The DNP estimates that there are about 1.6 students I'm sorry.
1.6 of a student.
So we have 1.6 students per homeschool. Do you think that's a good estimation of the average homeschool?
Homeschool families
family?
are like rabbits.
So maybe not.
We have 5 in
6.
our home. How many do you guys have?
9. So
Oh my goodness, 9?
So here, obviously, the average is more than that.
That's right.
So if it were 1.6, we'd have 179,900 students. NCHE gives a more realistic estimate of 2.5 students. That's still low in the current company.
Yeah.
If that's the case, we have 281,535 students.
Okay, so I'm going to make a guess. We're looking at 350,000. That's my guess.
Okay, all right.
We'll see if that's
We'll
right.
put that down, right. So this represents more than 16.6% of the total North Carolina K through 12 student population. 16% of the students. Wow. Since most homeschools with only students below the age of 7, if you have kids below 7, you don't have to open your homeschool. They don't even know about those schools.
Right.
So it doesn't even count those.
All right, so let me tell you what happened last night. Last night, I updated our homeschool.
Before the show, right?
Yeah. Well, no, they sent me a letter in the mail that said you have to update your records or we're going to close your homeschool. And I'm like, okay. Well, anyway, so I updated. We have twins that are 6. And so they have to be registered this year. So I registered them last night. But we've already been doing homeschool.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a perfect example.
There's 2 more. There you go.
So we know there are more schools out there. Dr. Brian Ray from the National Home Education Research Institute says this, quote, empirical evidence shows that homeschooling doubled in the United States during the government pandemic lockdowns. The growth occurred from the 2019-2020 institutional school year to the 2021 year, to perhaps as many 5 million school-aged children. And this comes from the latest census that was taken. So you can see that although probably nationally it's doubled, it has not doubled in North Carolina. At the same time, it's important to realize that 16.6% of students in North Carolina are homeschooled is double the national average of how many students in a state are homeschooled. So North Carolina is the highest per capita homeschool state.
And
so
the
we're
numbers
already
are probably
doubled.
low.
Yeah.
I mean, because we talked about the numbers of the families.
So that's the first piece of big news here. Homeschool is exploding. It's exploding in North Carolina and nationally. All right, 2 other items for news. One is that there is a conference coming up for parents of children with learning differences and other special needs. This is called the Summit, the NCHE Summit for Parents of Exceptional Children. This is happening Saturday, October 23rd of this year in Winston-Salem. And you can go to nche.com/summer21 to find out more about it and to register. Registration is opened. And so they have this as the goal: be refreshed, equipped, and encouraged by our wonderful speakers, and the opportunity to fellowship with other parents homeschooling children with learning differences and other special needs. All right, here's the last headline for homeschool news today, and that is, in North Carolina, there's a new weekly show just for homeschool parents.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
What is it?
It's called The Homeschool Show from North Carolinians for Home Education.
Starring John Lewis with Matthew McGill.
That's right. That's exactly right. So, North Carolinians for Home Education is putting this on because our goal is to help parents homeschool with confidence and joy. That's our mission. That is the mission of this show. We do that in 3 ways normally. One is we protect the rights of parents in North Carolina to homeschool. Number 2, we equip parents with the information and encouragement they need. And number 3, we connect parents with other families and groups across the state. We're going to be doing that through this show, especially the equipping part. And we're going to be articulating and arguing for some really important values that we believe in and that you believe in. One being the responsibility and authority of parents to decide how to educate their children. This is a fundamental right, and it's under serious attack and discussion right now.
Absolutely.
Also, the opportunity to homeschool needs to be protected and made very free. It is in North Carolina, and we're going to keep fighting for that also. Not only as an organization, but through this show, we're going to continue to talk about those values.
Excellent.
Okay, what do we have next?
We're going to do the Homeschool Conversation segment. This is...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
Kathy Cook.
And you already said you have 5 kids.
Yeah.
And you're a homeschool dad.
Yeah.
Tell us about your kids, the ages of your kids.
So I've got one that's 17, just started her senior year. I've got a 15-year-old and a 10-year-old soon to be 11, and twin 6-year-olds soon to be 7. So the 10-year-old and the 6-year-olds, their birthdays are one day apart. So
Okay.
Yeah.
And my range, I'm not going to tell you the ages of each one, even though I could do it, I promise, is 22 down to 7, about every 2 years or so. So one of the things that we're going to talk about while we talk about home education is parenting. Mm-hmm. And I was able to catch up with Kathy Cook, we call her Dr. Kathy, from Celebrate Kids at a conference. And we sat down, and one of the things we talked about is how to have tough conversation with your kids. How to have tough conversations with your kids. How do you do that?
Right.
And I don't. Do you ever have
never
tough conversations with your kids?
With the number of people in our house, every conversation is tough. You don't get to finish a sentence, honestly, most of the time. So,
can you remember any recently, or?
Let's see. We got up this morning and probably had about 10 different tough conversations.
Well, one I had recently is with my 15-year-old. Child. He's a man child now. He's very, very big guy. But it was about dating.
Is he bigger than you?
Not quite.
No. Okay. You can still take him, huh?
So, and we had the conversation about dating, and it was kind of one of those where, well, Dad, what if I don't agree with you about that? I was like, okay, this is going to be a tough conversation.
That's gonna be fun. There you go.
So I really appreciated the opportunity to talk to Kathy. There's some great insights on this interview. I want to show it to you now. We're going to watch it. We're going to listen to it, and then we'll talk a little bit after.
All right.
Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right, let's roll that.
Dr. Kathy.
Is how to have tough conversations, or how to have conversations about tough stuff, how to be available. Because you know what? We've got to be ready for our kids to come to us and admit, does God really get this, Dad? Like, is God still really, are you sure he's still a loving God? Look what's happening. You know, and you know, why would he allow this to happen? So how do we make it easy for our kids to come to us? Not Google it, because you know what? They can Google it. They can go to google.com and say, is God really loving? You don't want Google telling your kids about that. And I mean, we have curriculum providers, and God love them, and they need to be there. It's a super important part of your homeschooling journey. But as someone said at this conference today, the academics, that's not important in comparison to securing their heart, spiritual development for most of us, and the right relationship so that you can be working with Christ to transform their heart, toward righteousness.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what you ended with about the relationship where the kids can come to the parents and have the real conversation.
Yeah.
How can parents develop those relationships?
It's a great question. There's so much I could say. Parents need to take care of themselves, and this is hard. We're in a new normal, whatever you want to call it. Stress is real. Let's not be ashamed of that. There can be a depression. There can be some anxiety that's real. If the economy hasn't struck you, it's struck your friends and family. The health concerns are real. The different work relationships that you may have. Some of you are possibly working at home and you'd rather not. And it's 2.5 kids and a dog, and it's loud and it's chaotic and it's confusing. And so compassion for ourselves, and are we resting and taking care of ourselves so that we can be fully present? That would be the phrase. I want us to be fully present in marriage, in parenting with our aging parents. That means our phones are in another room. It means that we've rested and we're taking care of ourselves. I think for children, do we really love them unconditionally? Like, really? Do we say that? And are you ready for the big reveal where they come to you and they're like, Dad, I'm not sure anymore that I love God because I'm really angry at what he's allowing to have happen. Can you unconditionally love your son then? Mm-hmm. And what's that feel like and look like, and what's the first thing out of your mouth? Prepare for that. I actually teach in my seminar about being available for the tough conversations. I actually recommend that you prepare for demonstrating unconditional love with different scenarios. And what is the first thing you would say?
Are you asking me?
I know, you don't have to answer it.
No, I'd be glad to.
No, what would you say? Like,
tell me what you're thinking. I mean, what?
Excellent.
What's going on in your mind to bring you to that thought? What are your questions?
I love that. I love that. So rather than interrogating, asking for more information, asking for clarification, what's your source of wisdom for that conclusion? And one of my favorite things, Matthew, would be, man, I'm sorry you're confused. Because, if I ask adults, do you like to be confused? Yeah. You would say no, right? No. Confusion doesn't feel safe or good or comfortable. And
Well, another thing I would do is probably tell the story of when I worked at Kmart and a Mormon kid came in and tried to engage me.
Oh, yeah.
And knocked my socks off. I mean, I just was spinning in doubt.
Wow.
And I went home from work. I was in high school. I mean, I'd already committed to ministry. It wasn't like I was a unserious believer.
Right.
But I was knocked for a loop, and I came home and my dad was sitting in the living room, and I just sat down and said, Dad, this is really throwing me for a loop. And he talked to me, and it was what I needed. But to identify with my kids, I know exactly how you're feeling.
Yes.
Because that's what we do. We do that.
Yeah, it's really good. I love that. I think that soon in that conversation to say, hey, been there, done that. I'm not scared because I've also been, doubting. Yeah. I love that your dad was present in the living room and that you knew that he was safe and you could instantly admit, I'm confused, Dad. I love that it was your dad. I love that he was available. I love that you knew he was trustworthy. Yeah, I think, and we do need to listen longer. That's something I talk about. And for us to not be afraid, so for us to respond with compassion. I'm sorry you're confused. Thank you for trusting me. It's one of the most important things to say. Trust and security is like the foundation of all relationships, right? It's the foundation of the relationship we have with the God of the Bible and with Jesus and with the Spirit. And it's where your kids want to know, can I trust my dad and can I trust my mom? So for us to say, because words really matter, for us to say, man, I'm so grateful that you came and that you could trust me. Thank you for trusting me. It's a huge statement. And you know what? Another thing is to admit, man, I don't know. Like, I'm confused too. And it might not be about anything related to the COVID situation. It might be, you know, I don't know. I just don't get why I should wait for sex. You know, I mean, it could be any number of issues. It could be a 9-year-old who says, Dad, you know, what's the big deal with cheating? Like, I studied, but I just didn't know that one answer. And so I just, like, what's the big deal? I mean, it can be any number of things. But for us to say, you know, let's figure it out together. Let's research it together, whether that's Bible study, legit, you know, having your children's pastor on speed dial. You know, one of the things I recommend that we do is if our parents are still alive, that we reach out to them and our kids know we've done that. So is your dad still alive? You know, and he's a truth seeker and a Christ follower, so he's a good source of wisdom. So with your sons and daughters, say, hey, let's call Grandpa. Wonder what because don't you want your kids to come to you even when they're adult grown children? So let's let them watch us do the same.
Wow.
All right, John.
Yeah, that was great.
Do you have any thoughts? Anything that struck you about that conversation?
There's so much stuff in that. I mean, so the first thing, I love the fact that she mentioned you don't want your kids Googling the answers to their spiritual questions.
That's right.
That's dangerous, right?
Yeah.
But I also like thinking about what she said. I'm trying to go back to the earlier part first, but she mentioned that academics weren't the most important reason for homeschooling. That made me think about when my wife and I were trying to figure out what we were going to do, and our oldest 2 kids were really young, we went away on a retreat, just the 2 of us, and we just kind of wrote down all the things we wanted for our kids and what our top priorities were going to be for raising these kids. And academics were really important to us. We both had college degrees. We were both high school teachers, and that was kind of our environment was education, but when we put everything down, academics was high, but then we ranked things in order, and we picked our top 5 things, and academics was number 5 out of 5. It was not in the first 4.
Wow.
So yeah, and that was what really
that
was what really got our attention and said, why are we struggling with this decision? Academically, our kids are probably going to do fine, and there's other things more important than that.
Right.
So
that's great. So I'm really struck with the relational focus.
Yeah.
Because a lot of parents choose to homeschool and then they realize I can't do this because I don't get along with my kids. Send them back. Because
let your teacher deal with it.
It reveals a lot of parenting stuff. It reveals relational issues. Unfortunately, it reveals stuff in my heart, and it's a rough refining thing.
We got baggage.
Yeah,
we all got baggage.
It's true.
Yeah,
and so what I think is really important about this is that it causes us, and homeschooling is one of the places, the context that we have to do this, to focus on what's my relationship with my kids. And so a lot of times what happens is we get into math. I mean, what a perfect place to have a fight. Math or something else,
I was a math teacher, so
okay.
The math is not a place to fight. I was like, I'm right.
Okay, that's right.
I know what I'm talking about.
There's no discussion here. But there's tears, and when you realize that there's tension in the relationship,
right?
I think
one
of the important things here is one of the things she said is that trust and security is the foundation of the relationship.
It's huge.
So one thing that we want to walk away with today is a really hard question for parents. Okay, I want you to ask this of yourself, parents. Do my kids trust me? And do they feel secure in my relationship with them and in my love for them? Just the other day, my son said, Dad, what are you going to do if I don't agree with you? What are you going to do? How are you going to react? And he had some fear. He had some fear. Yeah. And I can't say it was unfounded, right? Because sometimes I can get aggressive and my way or the highway. And I had to say, you know what? You're going to have to walk this out, but I'm here for you.
Yeah.
And if you don't agree with me, I love you. And I'm going to do everything I can to help you. And there's security in that. that's really important. Do my kids trust me?
I think what you said to him was great, because that's one of the things I've told people for a long time. I call that the Jacob moment. Where Jacob is wrestling with who he is and who God is, and he meets the angel. And I've told students for years, I've told my kids when I was teaching high school, when I was working with youth, all those scenarios, I tell people, you have to wrestle with these hard questions. And there's I can give you answers, but I can't convince you, right? It's not my job.
I can't get you to discover what you have to discover.
So they have to go on this journey of wrestling with God through these questions. And the thing is, what they learn when they come through the other side of that, nobody can take away from them.
Mm-hmm. As we think about what to ask ourselves and what to do we as parents have tensions and obstacles in our relationships that we need to go resolve? Do we need to ask our kids for forgiveness? What do we need to do to make our relationship right with our kids? Because they need us and they need to be able to come to us. One great thing about Dr. Kathy is that she's going to be at our conference. She's going to be one of our featured speakers at the Thrive Homeschool Conference. And so it's never too early to put down on your calendar the date that's coming up. May 26th through 28th, 2022. Right there in Winston at the Benton Convention Center. She's going to be a featured speaker. Are you going to be there?
I've been there the last 13 years. I'll probably be there.
Yeah, and we've been there 17 years. And one of the reasons John and I are doing this together is because we have been able to visit and reconnect every year at the conference. It's been really important for us. And so I want to invite you to the conference. It's definitely worth it.
Yeah, you need to come. You need to come if you haven't been.
Right. What do we got next, John?
We're going to talk about our homeschool reality moment. So we got this is a great opportunity for us to look at what's going on, the homeschool reality moment. So let's see what's going on in your homeschools this week.
Hi, I'm Rhonda, and this is my homeschool story. I'm probably at a little different place than a lot of you. Many of you are just starting out. I'm just completing our homeschool journey. And in fact, today, I'm going to try not to cry, but we took our son to the recruiter's office because he is going to be enlisting in the Army. And so this was our youngest son. So I guess I have a different perspective. I'm looking back at my homeschooling and thinking, of course, I'm that kind of girl that tends to look at what's wrong rather than what's right. So I think about the mistakes I've made in my homeschooling, or things I wish I would have done better. But the thing the Lord has been saying to me is that He can fill in the gaps where I haven't done things perfectly. He just enables us and gives us everything we need when we're homeschooling. And so I'm just really grateful today and thankful that I had the opportunity to be with my kids for that long, for 26 years of homeschooling. And I guess my story is about homeschool with the end in mind, because the days are long sometimes when you're homeschooling, right? And it can feel overwhelming, and it can feel, you can feel unsure of yourself and just not sure what you're supposed to do, or if you're doing it right, or am I going to make them stupid or something like that. I know at least I felt that way. And I just want to encourage you to think about the time you get to spend with your kids and be grateful for that, and be willing sometimes to put the books away and just spend time with them. You know, get what you need to get done. But when you're at this end of your homeschooling, you remember all the wonderful things and maybe the not so good things, the times when I've blown up and had to go apologize. But if we can just keep the perspective, I wish I would have kept the perspective of this isn't going to be forever, and being willing to take the time to stop a lesson if there needed to be some discipline, or just some joy along the way too, just a fun discovery or something with one of the kids. So I just want to encourage you with that today. Homeschool with the end in mind. and just be so grateful. It doesn't last forever, unfortunately. I would still go back and do it again. And be grateful along the way. Happy Homeschool Day to you.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you, Rhonda. That was encouraging. And that was Rhonda Marshall, Matthew. She is the NCHE Community Relations Director. And so for those of you who are needing help with your homeschool or you need information, we would love to get you connected with the homeschool community. You can contact Rhonda, I'm sure, through the website, nche.com. And we'd love to see what's going on in your homeschool as well. So if you have stuff you want to send to us, you can help us and join in the podcast effort here by sharing your ideas and experiences with us. And we want you to send that. Matthew, can you tell them where do they send that to if they've got something?
The Homeschool Show at nche.com. And if you have videos, you can share us in there. If you're a member of NCHE and you want to ask a question that you want us to answer on the show, you can send it to the same place, the Homeschool Show at nche.com.
That'll be fun.
And so we are really happy that you joined us this week. And if you think this would be something that's helpful to your friends and family, please share it. You can go to our website for this show, which is nche.com/The Homeschool Show, and you can get the notes, the links. You can find out more about the show, how to subscribe on YouTube, how to find it as a podcast and subscribe. So as the show posts, we're going to be having more information for you there. There's a lot of other information at nche.com where you can find out about our other webinars, about the conference and everything else. And so until next time, keep homeschooling with confidence and joy.